Waking to the quiet this part of the Nox provided, Shailagh took a few extra moments to recount the last 2 weeks before allowing her eyes to open. The spores must have cleared my system by now, surely. Whatever I see, I must accept as truth. Hopeful that she was correct in her assumption, she stretched her form to its furthest capabilities. As no Fae is truly a full Fae, Shailagh wondered how much of her was something else for a fleeting moment. Her shadowy, humanoid silhouette danced about as she laughed at her own musings. A Fae is a Fae from the moment they can glamour themselves. The wisdom of the old Fae who helped teach her what she was came to mind. Perhaps she'd meet them again one day. Or they died. Stepping out of the cave as she entertained the thoughts, the words slipped out in an exasperated sigh. The spores had no hallucinogenic properties, it seemed. Her hut was truly and utterly in shambles. Somehow she had lost an impressive amount of time. Best get to it, then. The truth was not something to fight. As Shailagh herself could not tell a lie, she knew that more than anyone. Once she realized the truth was as it appeared, the notion of speaking it aloud as anything else simply felt blasphemous, as well as painful. Something in her being never cared for it. What could be done, however, was to change that current truth into a better one. The truth was, her home was ruined. First was to gather a full assessment of the damage and decide if she had the means to repair it, or simply tear it all down and start again. She was no carpenter, but over the years she had learned how to patch up her hut rather competently. Clearing the vines to grow elsewhere, moving the moss to another patch of earth, those tasks would take longer than her home repairs, she determined. Dallying won't get the work done. Several hours later, as she was working on yanking another stubborn plant out of the ground to replant some 10 yards away with the rest, a Fae she did not recognize right away approached. The extremely long ears indicated some sort of elvish nature, though the bark appearance and the slightly glowing runes across its body could easily negate that assumption. There were a dozen such Fae flittering about, but this one had a scar that ran from the front left of her neck down her sternum and ending on the outside of her right hip. An unfortunate story for a different time. Well met by moonlight, Halia. You look well. And you have returned. Well met to the given. Halia briefly bowed before deftly pulling the plant Shailagh was struggling with, careful to not damage the roots. The pair walked the plant to the transplant location, chatting as they went. So I have. Pray tell, how long exactly would you say I was away? Shailagh dug the small hole required, and Halia placed the plant. It was a weed, really, but who was Shailagh to kill a piece of the Nox Wyld that had survived this long? Let the rabbits end it, as is the way of the world. 5 years, nearly to the day. Shayla's laugh was brief when she realized Halia was not joking. 5 years, you say? That is unfortunate, but my doll remained at the forest entrance where I left from, and so did my promise, and so I have returned. The other given and the rest of Noctum Caligo who left through the mist with me should also be here somewhere. We'll need to send proper word to the rest of the Nox Wyld of our return, I suppose. Halia nodded in understanding. I will ensure it is done. The wood-skinned Fae spent some time assisting Shailagh in relative silence until the pair had achieved a decent amount of work for the day. The inside of the hut was a mess from animals and flooding, so the pair made a small fire in the cave for their meal. Halia was not a fan of large amounts of meat, but she did favor the occasional rat or two. Luckily, there were plenty to be found, and the pair enjoyed a chat over supper. As Halia explained it, the last 5 years were mostly uneventful. The rumors of the Nox Wyld and the signs posted did well to protect their haven. The occasional bounty hunter or adventurer type would find the rumors to be true, but it wasn't anything the guild couldn't handle in the absence of the given. The dragons, however, posed a larger concern. The last year saw many territories around the world severely damaged, if not completely decimated by them. Halia herself was unsure if they nested anywhere nearby or the frequency of their attacks, but the Nox had largely been spared. There were some areas of damage to the south at Driftwood Landing and a few days east for quite a distance. She didn't know the full extent as she did not survey the entire forest, but she suspected more ground to have been lost. The Nox Wyld residents and Noctum Caligo being who they are, it didn't surprise Shailagh that the entire Wyld wasn't destroyed. She felt lucky her home only received overgrowth. In that case, I suppose I should begin my duties as Jackal quickly, lest I become complacent. Yes, and I have the first task, if you would indulge it. Halia ripped the cooked rat in half, plucked out a bone, and started drawing on the cave floor. Here to the east there is a burrow. A ghost was disturbed by some young fae who didn't know much better, and it seems to be keeping them from leaving the burial hill. I am uncertain of its intentions, as it will only allow the children to get close. Halia draws a circular series of dashes around her ghost depiction. I believe once we get the creature to release the children, we can put up some sort of blockade or even a simple fence to warn others away from the site. Moments like these Shailagh found distasteful. On one hand, the children in the Nox Wyld were under her care as a given, and being trapped on a burial mound was a grievous abuse of their freedoms. On the other hand, if the ghost cannot help but to trap children because of some compulsion of their existence, taking the children would disrupt their natural way. Either way, I suppose we couldn't simply put up the blockade and let the ghosts keep the children it already has? Halia's eyebrow furrow made Shailagh wave the notion away. Of course. I'll go check it out. Halia stood, her meal left half-eaten for Shailagh to finish in her own time. Then at daybreak, I will see you at the mound. Lowering her head slightly, Halia left. Shailagh looked over at the doodle in the earth once more, absent-mindedly finishing the meal. We'll see if I can even help in this situation. I'm just as happy to go with my plan and call it square. That thought in mind, Shailagh retired for the evening.